Hello everyone, and welcome to my Let's Look At on Smite. For those of you who don't know what Smite is, if you've ever heard of League of Legends, Dota 2, Heroes of New Earth, and something of the Storm, I don't remember the other one. I'm not really a big player of multiplayer online battle arenas, though some would probably call it action strategy something or other, but those who don't know what the heck's going on here, you will shortly. But this game is fun. The main difference in the whole thing is instead of top-down where you have to click to move, this game you actually use WASD and it's a third-person over-the-shoulder view. So it makes a lot of different things, you know, it makes a lot of different things different, that makes sense. It makes, it turns the Moba genre on its head. And well, let's get into it. For those who don't know the basics of the game, we shall get into it here. There are, I think, 4 or 5 different classes: Assassin, Warrior, Guardian, Mage, and Hunter. Now, for those who don't know jack about the game, like I said, let's get into it. Hunter. Hunters are your, if you play the other games, they're kind of like your right-click heroes, but in this game, it's really just hold down the left mouse button. They require a lot of items to get up and started, and in the beginning they are rather weak, though there is some discussion that they are, you know, a little overpowered mid-game, but they're supposed to wreck late. I don't know anything about that, I just got into the game 2 days ago. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. They usually go to the long lane, which in this game can be either left or right, there's no constants in this. And it's usually a duo lane with the support, which is a whole other can of worms I've not even gotten into practicing with. But usually, from what I understand, Guardians are supports along with a few choice mages along the lines of like Aphrodite. I'm not sure what all of them are. I'm guessing Hell because I think she has some healing items, Raw, things like that. But for the actual offensive mages, they are usually designated to the middle lane. The middle lane is kind of where most of the action happens, because you have the jungler always trying to roam over to gank, you have your, you know, they go roam over to gank left the side lanes, and it's just a whole big thing. Now, warriors get the distinction of usually going to the solo lane, which is the short lane. And they call it the short lane because, well, the towers are kind of closer together than the long lane. And I think for the reference, I think the long lane's the one by the beach and the solo lane's the one by all the molten lava. That might change, however, I'm not sure, but yeah. These are usually very survivable, and they do a decent amount of damage, nowhere near the amount of damage as a hunter or an assassin does, but they live a lot longer for it. So, the assassin, pretty much exactly what you imagine it does. A lot of them specialize in killing other gods, but on the flip side, they are usually fairly squishy. Now usually these are designated as junglers, which if you don't know what a jungler is, instead of sitting in the lane soaking up XP and gold, usually they're the ones making it happen by killing the neutral camps in the jungle. And as opposed to, say, I don't know, League of Legends meta and all that, I've never played the game but once, but in this game, it's not all about ganking. They are actually there to actually help the team for once. That's a novelty, right? Well, in this, there are jungle camps that give buffs. Now, usually the jungler gets the speed buff, whereas the mages get like the power buff, and the hunters usually get the attack speed buff, I think. Actually, I might have just screwed that all up, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to commit any faux pas here if I ever go jungler. And they actually are a really big help if they're played well. If they're not played well, well, you've had bad junglers, I'm sure, in your other Moba games, so you know exactly what you're in for. That's basically the roles in a nutshell. That's fairly long, I know that wasn't really in a nutshell, but instead of just the one mode here, like the Conquest Conquest is basically your 3 lanes, and you know, destroy the towers, destroy the phoenixes, and then destroy the big enemy at the end. In this case, it's a giant titan. And joust, I've never actually went into joust. I'm imagining it's just 3v3 instead of 5v5, but and then there's the old practice you can get into, you know, practice whatever god you want, try out item builds, things like that. Arena is actually one of my favorite modes, though it is kind of, as it says, casual because it's a lot of action, but it's actually a lot more in-depth than people really give it credit for, because You can get kills and just focus on kills, but you really want to try and clear out the creep waves. And now we're getting into a big speech here. I should probably move on. So let's move on into some gameplay here. Now, as soon as you load into the lobby, the first urge is going to be insta-lock in whatever god you want to play. Squash that, don't do it, that's extremely rude. What you should be doing is saying what position you want to play in chat as soon as you load in. Don't just do this unless you're doing it in practice mode like I am right here. That doesn't really matter in this. But that's just common etiquette from what I've gathered. Like I said, I'm trying to learn all I can before I ever go into, matchmaking. So, beginning of the game. Beginning of the game is just like any other multiplayer online battle arena. Depending on what your position is, you want to go to your lane or the jungle, or actually I think the jungler in this game wants to go to the solo lane for the first couple minutes and then transition into rotating around the map. If I've gotten the positions correct. So let's cut ahead a little bit further, unless you want to watch me last hit creeps, which is not exactly, thrilling, so let's get into it, finally. Okay, now that we've skipped ahead about 10 minutes into the game, as you can see, I'm on the left lane, also otherwise known as the long lane, which you can't really see because I already destroyed one tower, but one important mechanic to know is do not hit a god underneath the tower, because the tower will automatically turn on you. That's why I backed up, get a little poke maneuver in, and because it's a bot, it's stupid as hell and just sits there, but that's not going to happen in a normal game unless you're playing in the very low leagues, I would imagine. But this is normally extraordinarily risky to start doing this, because, as you can see on the minimap, a jungler could be coming out right from where my support's going in there, where Neath is actually going in. So normally you want to be a little bit less gung-ho as I was right there. Now, I do tend to neglect my active purchases. I'm trying to get better at that, because actives are really kind of underrated for a new player. You look at it and go, well, I'd rather have the stats, I'd rather have the attack speed, I'd rather have whatever the hell. Let me tell you, having a well-timed greater sprint at the right time, in my limited experience, is very limited, don't get me wrong, and the purification beads are another huge one. If you play Dota 2, the purification beads are sort of like, I was gonna say it's kind of like a BKB, but it's not really at all, because the BKB's magic immunity, and that's just crowd control immunity, I think. But it's still an immunity of sorts. Now, normally you're not gonna have to clear this out if you're a hunter, because normally that's the jungler's job, unless the jungler sucks at his job. Usually that's gonna be clear, and the buff's gonna be sitting there waiting for you. Another thing is, if you hit a god while there are enemy minions, I kept saying creeps, if there are enemy minions near you, they will turn on you, and in the early game that is a death sentence. So be careful, for the love of God, if you're a ADC and the beginning of the game, because if you get behind the enemy hunter, you are going to stay behind more than likely if they're any good, because you have the same kit they do, except you have obviously different skills. You just gotta outplay them at that point. But let's move ahead further beyond just watching me lane. Right, so every MOBA usually has a big AI enemy. In this game, there are two. There's the Gold Fury and the Fire Giant. Normally you wait until an enemy, maybe even 2 or 3, are dead, and then you go to kill this, because there is an item called Hand of the Gods, which I believe is like level 2 or 3, which allows you to instantly finish it at 25% or lower health. So they can actually quite easily steal it if they are sneaky. Now but normally you want to make sure you're not the only one going for it, especially the Fire Giant, unless you are really, really fed, which in a bot game you will always be really, really fed unless you are just not very mechanically skilled in these. And for those wondering, I believe the Gold Fury gives you like 300 gold for the entire team, whereas the Fire gets you a buff. I think it's like HP regen, mana regen, and I think maybe attack power. I'm not sure on that last one, but I'm pretty sure the regens. But let's move ahead to a bit later in the game. We're skipping ahead a lot. I am sorry for the inconvenience. Okay, now I've heard you talk about these phoenixes before, Bark. What do they exactly do? Well, they hit very hard, so if a god is underneath it and you're in the same little circle area, don't hit it. Treat it like a tower. They hit very, very hard. And if you kill them, they do give your minions a buff. I think they give them fire weapons, as you see behind me. Well, if I ever turn around, you will. Yeah, the fire weapons there. And that gives you a tremendous buff. Also, a good thing to note is that if you don't have any Phoenixes down on the enemy side, you cannot go and even attempt to kill their Titan. So that is an important thing to note, and I don't know why I sold that. But I shouldn't have sold that quite yet. But yeah, back on, actually I guess I admit it does make sense. It was a full Deathbringer. I thought that was just like the tier 1 version of it. But yeah, as far as the Titan goes, if you've ever played World of Warcraft and went into Ultrac Valley, it's kind of like the final boss of that, but it's not really as difficult. But let's skip ahead, and I guess I'll show you that fight. I'm just trying to show you the basics of the game. There are things I've neglected to mention, like at the 3-minute mark, you want, if you're in mid, go contest the Harpy camps, or whatever they're called. And if you're a jungler, for the love of it, you better be there at that point, because you're not doing your job if you're not. This isn't exactly the best example of a Titan fight, considering I think I just threw poke maneuvers at the thing, but the Titan hits even harder than the other things, and if you are tanking it, you're going to die very quickly unless you're a Guardian or something else very, very tanky. Now, I think it's important to note, if you aggro the thing and everybody runs out, I think it does reset and gain its health back, so you know, you really want to be careful about this thing. But when the Titan dies, and it will inevitably die, one of them, you win the game or lose the game. Pretty much like destroying the Ancient in Dota. I have no idea what the hell the thing is in League of Legends, but I'm assuming they all have that. And the only reason I was keeping that is because watching the guy do his little curly impression on the ground, that was awesome. Okay, now that we know the basics of Conquest, the main mode, now I'm going to show you my favorite mode. I still love Conquest, but you start out at level 3 and with 1500 gold, and for those who don't realize, I'm playing as Nemesis, as an assassin character, probably not the best suited to Arena considering they're so squishy, and rely on kind of ambushing, but oh well, it's fun anyway. Now, the Arena is entirely different from Conquest. I was going to say there are no towers, but there is one tower on each side. But the main thing is, you see that big portal over there? I think in 10 seconds, minions start spawning. For every minion you kill, you lower your enemy's tickets by 1. The tickets are on the right side, we're each at 500. Well, now we're not. But you start at 500, for every hero kill you take 5 tickets, for every minion last hit, you have to actually last hit it. If it just dies to minions, you don't actually get the credit. Then I think that gives you 1 ticket advantage. Now, every 10, I think, hero kills, I don't know what the exact system is, but every once in a while a big siege tower will spawn. If you escort that all the way to the enemy's portal over there, that's the whole point, escort your minions to the enemy portal, then I think you get like, what, 10 tickets bonus or whatever it is? But this is basically just a big, not really deathmatch, but it's more casual, but it's not entirely casual. There are strategies that are better, some that are worse, some that are just for funsies, but as you see, the bots are still very, very stupid here. I'm assuming it's a lot better with actual players, but I'm really more so just honing my mechanical skills. It doesn't really get a whole lot better than this unless you just want to watch Nemesis gameplay. And I'm guessing most of you who are watching this probably don't. If you do, well, I'm sorry. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys very much for watching. Hopefully this helped you in some way get used to Smite, and hopefully if anybody out there wants to play, you know, hit me up. I refuse to play online without people, you know, friends of mine, because I'm just not that, I don't enjoy getting yelled at by random people for doing something they don't agree with. But, yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this helped you in some way, or taught you a little bit more about Smite if you were a beginner like me. Take note, any advice I give is coming from a guy who started playing 2 days ago. I'm not saying I'm very good at all, but this is what I've tried to learn. And again, if I've said something wrong, please educate me. I want to get better. And thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I shall see you next time. If you'd like to help support the channel and help it grow, you may wish to like or even subscribe for easier access to future videos. And hopefully I shall see you next time. Farewell everyone, until next time.